are now wives, heroes of war, history twisted, not anymore.
Welcome to another episode of Sisters Not Wives. My name is Kinsley Hatch.
And I'm Jocelyn Hatch.
And today we are continuing our episode of what it was like growing up in Utah. And with a twist. Specifically, we're going to get into some did we join a cult type experiences that are definitely unique to Utah. So last time we ended talking about the ballroom dance community we were a part of as part of being homeschooled, which ballroom is also like really big in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's our teams, like our colleges all have ballroom, and a lot of ballroom dancers come to Utah to dance, and so that's really big, which is just an interesting dynamic. And I wonder when that actually got started, like what made ballroom big in Utah. I wonder if it was like being able to dance with males and females, like that role. I don't know.
Yeah.
Leader and a follower, I don't know. But I don't know the history of that. If anyone does, please leave a comment. But so we were talking about kind of the structure of it, how it started in our homeschool group, and then did you say any of your experiences last time?
I think I said like my stuff was like kind of later on, but I did think also after we talked that it was. Did we talk about this in the last one? I can't remember. How it was really odd because it was like when it first started, it's almost like there wasn't enough guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lady running it had the great idea to ask some of the homeschool dads to come and dance with us 14, 15, 16-year-old girls.
Wow.
And it was like just the worst. It was so uncomfortable. And it was always like the really weird dads that gave you the creeps.
Yeah, like any married man who's like, ooh, I will take time out of the middle of my day, like first of all not working, but in the middle of the day to go dance with 14 to 16 to 17-year-old girls is just.
And mind you, this is because she also decided to take one of the male students as her assistant who signed up to dance and be in the dance class. And it was kind of like impromptu. She was like, okay, you're my partner for the dance class.
Yes. And that was a common theme. There was always a much younger male dancer that was her assistant, and it rotated through the years.
Mm-hmm.
And a very interesting dynamic because she was in her 40s, and it is always these men/boys who are at least 20 years younger than her.
Mm-hmm.
And so. Do you want to talk about some of your experiences or?
I mean, like I said before, I don't really have anything that popped up until later. I know there was like comments that were made about my boobs.
Mm-hmm.
And about them making the boys uncomfortable, which was so annoying because we had like our uniform shirts that we eventually got. I don't think that was the thing in the beginning, but they were like always like way up high, and it was like, so it was not a cleavage issue,
right,
or anything. It was just like, you're making the boys uncomfortable, and
it's like, how are you supposed to do anything?
I'm like, what do you want me to do? Chop them off? Like,
right.
And when those comments started being made, I was like, okay, I'm out. Like, yeah. I'm good.
There was definitely a huge culture of, for lack of a better term, slut shaming.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time, this really interesting dynamic of the person running it really liking male attention and attention from the boys and like wanting to hang out with the teenagers. And you even like did some photography as a teenager, and so you got hired for that studio a couple different times to take their team picture. And I remember distinctly being in such a conservative community where it was very like modesty standards were very high and very strict. Like that was another big thing about this ballroom homeschool community is like underneath our outfits, we literally had to wear biker shorts. They weren't like normal dance shorts. They were at our knees. And
let's just say, the costumes were so ugly anyway.
Yeah, and and then cap sleeves, that was the modesty standard, and it was very enforced. And it was just the attitude of calling girls out if there is anything, if anyone was wearing anything or doing anything that was not kosher. Whereas at the same time, you have this teacher who's like jumping on these teenage boys and dancing with these teenage boys, or even these like young 20 assistants that she got. And I remember one time you were taking pictures and you came home and you're like, look at this that they took. And it was a picture of the oldest group, so probably like 17-year-old boys, um, who they all had their shirts off. It was all a shirtless picture with all of them, and I think they had a bow tie on. And then the female owner of the studio, a 40-year-old woman, her with all these 17-year-old shirtless boys wearing bow ties.
Yeah, and I think they were like holding her like across their arms.
Yes.
Like, it's very. Lee.
And it was supposed to be funny.
Right.
And maybe in a different setting it would be funny, but the fact that it was such a stark difference with how much modesty was like shamed into the girls, and then also how much just kind of inappropriate was how the behavior with the teenage boys and with the young 20-year-old men or boys with that older woman, it just made the whole dynamic very weird and very almost hypocritical
and inappropriate.
and inappropriate. And so I remember, so for me, I danced. I started when I was 14, and by the time I was 17, I wanted to be good at dancing because it was kind of the only dancing outlet we had, and we just weren't very good. Like our teams never won, and I just didn't like working on something I wasn't good at. And so I was like, I may quit after I was 17. And then she brought in a new male instructor who was a little bit older than the normal ones. I think he was 27 at the time, and I was 17, and she was in her 40s, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
she's in her
imagine
40s.
so.
And so, but he actually had more dance training and was more skilled. And so he was doing private lessons, and I was like, oh, I actually do want to get better, and I wanted to compete and find an individual partner and compete with. And so I started taking private lessons from him to work on my technique. And then eventually I got a dance partner to compete individually with, like amateur Latin or whatever. And so so that probably happened for like a year where I was taking private lessons from him, both for my technique and for my partnership for competing. And then one day, and we became friends, me and this dance teacher. And then one day he calls me up and he's like, Kensley, I need to tell you something. We can't do private lessons anymore because people have been talking about us. And the owner of the studio came to me and said it was we were being inappropriate and we couldn't like be alone together anymore, and it was causing issues. And so basically insinuating that me as a 17-year-old, who by the way had never kissed a boy in my life.
I was gonna say that's what was the most upsetting to me, is because you were a very, very innocent, very naive teenager.
Yes.
Like to the extreme.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you hadn't kissed anybody.
I don't even know if I had held hands with anyone at that point. Maybe once.
Right.
You know, like, so very naive and innocent in a community that was very much pushed women into purity culture, and I was 100% in it.
I was gonna say you were like very proud and strong of your morals.
I was like, even in the homeschool community, everyone knew me as the really strict person who would walk out of a movie if it had more than 3 swear words or any sensual songs. I'd be like, I do not listen to Enrique Iglesias. You know? Like, I was that type of person in a homeschool conservative community that is already that way.
Oh,
I was
man.
the extreme, and I really believed it. Like, I started reading my scriptures from the time I was 12 every single day. And I was just, and it wasn't just like I was culturally following it. I like hardcore believed it. And I was hardcore very much about the standards and keeping myself like clean and pure. And so the fact that we were getting these accusations, that I was getting these accusations, it very much felt like it was being directed at me, not him. Because why was he telling me? If there was a safety concern, which I think is valid and something you need to consider in a dance or any other kind of time when you're dealing with minors, like if there was that kind of concern, why was I getting it like from the male dance teacher
Right.
telling me that there was an issue?
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely seemed like an accusation. And the dance owner herself never talked to me. And it was like this, like, oh, it's because people are talking, because of gossip, and because you're acting inappropriate. And he was obviously mad about it. He was like, but it was just handled so poorly. Like, it wasn't about the safety of the minor, which was me. Like, it wasn't, they were concerned. Like, I think
Yeah,
that's-
like they didn't come talk to our parents or do
No.
anything.
Yeah,
That
no
would have been
talking
the
to
appro-
parents.
And then he's the one that had to pass along that information to you.
Right.
Like, what?
It wasn't about
It was not about protecting the minor.
what it was I think she got jealous because even though he was married, she did the same thing to him that she did to all the other ones. She like flirted with him and would jump on him and dance with him and act honestly like a teenage girl.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest too. Like the dance culture in general is a little toxic and a little pick me, and I feel like probably there's other girls in the studio too who are like, liked
Yeah.
that instructor.
And a side note, and this is in other dance communities as well, but it was definitely in this dance community too, was being skinny was so important. And like body shaming was a huge thing. And which is interesting in ballroom because honestly, like in other forms of dance, I don't know. For me, it was just like very much like you have to weigh like all the girls who were like 100 pounds and less. It was like they were the ones who got picked and they were the ones who like
Cabaret.
yeah, and like lifting and cabaret became a big thing, and which is fine. Yeah, it makes sense athletic wise and things like that. But it was just like it really was just like there wasn't a lot of technique being taught, and it was just easier to do it with small people. And so the skinny girls it was very much that kind of culture, which happens in dance regardless.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, the skinny girls get picked, but it's like, okay, like, yeah, that makes sense. But also, like, teach your men to be stronger too.
Yeah.
And how to hold and have that technique to.
And
also
also different body types,
Yeah.
Like I was not a bigger, like I was not super heavy by any means, but I felt like so huge because I wasn't one of these like 5'2" stick rail girls, and I weighed 130 pounds.
Yeah, we
So-
had a handful of those in our community.
Yeah, we had a handful of the really skinny, like stick thin girls, and it got catered to them. So, and I know that's like in other dance as well, but it just felt like all wrapped in together. It just felt very toxic. Like not only did you have this older woman who was like being very open and maybe crossing some lines with a bunch of all these younger guys, and then like enforcing a very strict modesty standard on the girls. And not only did you have that dynamic going on, but you also had like the skinny culture going on, and it was just all very, very weird. And so that's how it was handled. And ever after that, it felt like she treated me hostile. And that's why I literally think it's because she got jealous. Because I took
that's
dance lessons
weird.
from him and we were friends. And instead of thinking like, oh, I need to protect my students, she was just annoyed that we were friends. And so she would, like, I remember one time we took dance lessons, and afterwards we made we would like do it when other people were around, which honestly I think that's a good policy. I think that's totally fine, but it was just the way it was done and why it was done was not about adult safety or anything, minor safety, anything like that. So anyway, one time after that, I finished a dance lesson. I had cash to pay him, and so I was like waiting to talk to him, and he was talking to the owner of the dance studio, and it sounded like a long conversation, honestly. So I just like put the like $20 or whatever in his shirt pocket, and she was like, "How dare you, don't touch him there." And I was like, "What? I did not even touch his chest putting it in his pocket, and I wasn't
I was like,
yeah, I like slid down his chest or anything.
Yeah.
I like literally put it in his pocket, and she got pissed. And the thing is, the reason why is because she would do that kind of stuff. She would run her hand down people's chest and shirt, and
she would
make
literally
jokes like
jump on
that.
them, like
She would like throw herself at these dudes, and so- literally throw herself at these dudes, and who were married or minors. And so I think in her brain, it didn't matter that I was 17. I was like, and it didn't matter that he was married. And it didn't matter that I actually didn't do anything. And I think that happens in conservative, closed off communities. They start like, I don't know if it's like suppression and projecting it or what it is, but they start thinking everything's bad intent and everything has like a sexual undertone underneath it.
right.
Like, I feel like there's so
It's an
many people.
oxymoron almost.
It is, because I feel like there's so many like hyper conservative, hyper religious people, and I'm talking like more on the extreme end, who will take something innocent that actually isn't. Like, they're so scared of sexuality and it actually being expressed openly that things that aren't sexual but that could possibly mean something, they take it that way.
Yeah,
And
for
they get
real.
mad about it. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's not even like, you're taking it way too far, and they try to jump to the extreme. Like, that's basically like nudity, or that's basically,
Or
and it's like,
yeah.
no, a spaghetti strap isn't. You know,
Right.
like it's just interesting how that happens. So that was a really interesting experience. And then eventually he moved with his family to another state, and I felt like ever after that I was treated like crap. In like, I remember one time I wore shorts that were more like soccer shorts, and so they slid up a little bit, and I remember like someone came up to me and was like, "That is wildly inappropriate, blah blah blah." They were still shorts, you know, like it was. But like I just felt like I was kind of targeted after that, and people were not people, mostly just from the dance owner and a couple maybe people who really liked it. It was like this weird competitive jealousy type situation. So
Mhm.
that was a wild thing. And then she was never nice to me after that until I went to college and got on some dance teams that other people wanted to get on. And suddenly, then when I saw her as an adult, she was super nice to me. But so that was my really weird experience with that place.
Yeah. Such a joy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really interesting, that whole experience, because when you're a teenager, like, I don't know, that just really shapes you, how you look at your body and how you,
Oh yeah.
and especially going in a closed community, being able to dance was great, but it also came with all these, like toxic cultures. That was really
Mhm.
weird. And it's kind of weird because there was a lot of predatory behavior towards the boys and towards these young men that was happening.
And there's a lot of things that allegedly, like a lot more things that allegedly happened.
Right. And I don't want to talk about them because it's
Yeah, I don't
alleged,
either.
and it's not our story to tell, but there
Right.
are a lot of stories from
It does go a lot
the
deeper.
people who were boys there, and the men and other things that happen there. It just feels, even not including all of that, it just feels like growing up, sometimes when you are in a closed environment, and in a conservative community specifically, a lot of people are innocent and good intent, and you don't think those things could happen, and it's a really easy community for predatory behavior to happen,
Yeah.
as you don't know the signs and you're not looking for it, and you're just assuming everyone's going to treat you right.
Yeah.
And so, and also in that kind of situation, it's usually like reverse roles. Like most predators, like that, a lot of times predators are male, you know? And so it was kind of an interesting dynamic where it was a reverse role happening to boys, but
A lot of shame with the girls.
yeah, a lot of.
I also remember one other instance I remember was like we used to go to like this dance center
Mm-hmm.
like on the weekends or whatever, and it was a lot of old people that would go. So it was
Yeah.
like our little homeschool dance community and then a bunch of old people. And I remember one time this older guy asked me to dance, and I danced with him, and I danced with him again, and then he wanted to dance again and again and again. And I was like, just not feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I like remember like kind of running away and like telling some of like our chaperones and stuff and like hiding in the bathroom, but like nobody did anything about
Yeah,
it.
that's the thing.
Like I was wildly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. And that's in hindsight, that's wildly inappropriate. And like adults should have stepped up and helped you.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, it was very much taught, like, just be nice. And like that's why we went to that dance center for all those old people, because we felt bad for the old people, and we're like, oh, let's like help the dance culture and like dance with these sweet old people who don't have anyone else to dance with. Which sure, that sounds sweet, but in hindsight you have old men who are repeatedly dancing with these teenage girls and not checking where their eyes are too, like
Right.
especially being like well endowed, their older men do not know how to check themselves sometimes, and I remember that
Definitely
happening
don't.
to people. And it was like, definitely it wasn't, you weren't taught how to set you were taught how to set standards if like, oh, a boy was trying to get too far with you, or if there was drugs at a party or something like that, but not standards of if you're uncomfortable, you have the right to tell someone no.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to do something and you feel uncomfortable in your body with that experience,
Mm-hmm.
you have the right to demand that you be respected and your wants be respected. It doesn't matter what their intention was or if they were harmless or whatever. It's about how you're feeling and having the control over your own body.
Yeah.
That was definitely not taught. And also in that culture, so it was kind of like predatory behavior towards boys, and then almost like submission and like being nice and not having control, or just always catering towards being polite and nice for the girls and being modest and the good girl instead of protecting yourself.
Yeah.
So
and
that
that's
was-
very common just in general as women.
Yeah.
Like be polite, blah 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 blah. Thankfully I think there's starting to be a shift in that, but
Yeah, it's good to see for sure, but historically that has been the role that women have. There's always been like a tight little box that women are supposed to fit into, and regardless of comfort or help or any of it really. So yeah, so that was the interesting ballroom experience. And I'm sure people have other stories as well, but the next topic that I want to talk about is, did we join a cult?
And did you join a cult?
And did we join a couple cults? It was hard. There was a lot of them. It was bound to happen.
Say what you told me earlier about Utah.
Oh, yeah. So Utah is the #1 state in the U.S. for fraud being committed.
Which makes sense.
It does make sense. I had one person explain it as, I think there's a couple different factors, but I had one person explain it is there's usually like a sales organization where the leaders start dabbling in things they shouldn't be, like fraud and scams and money laundering or whatever, all those type of similar fraud-esque behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes for a certain amount of time, and then eventually they get caught, and the like CEO and the leaders are taken to prison, but they still had this whole organization that was operating under them. And so those people just create a new organization and start doing it.
Yep.
And like even thinking about our brothers,
I was gonna say
Was
their
it-
one job.
Yeah, their one job, it was like they sold like weight loss pills and things on the phone and blah blah blah. And then turns out, yeah, their whole founding group were they money laundering, or what were they doing?
I think it was money
Money
laundering.
laundering and like
Paid him a saying,
and maybe like tax fraud or something. I don't know.
yeah.
But they got like raided by the FBI.
Dude, the place that I used to work at, a pharmacy, like a little family-owned pharmacy, and then it got bought by somebody else, and they were money laundering through that too.
I did not know that.
Yeah, right after I
Why?
quit, I was driving home from my new job, and
Wow.
there was like SWAT teams surrounding the building.
Wow.
Like they thought the owners were like inside, and like nobody in the actual little pharmacy knew what the heck was going on.
That is crazy. And like there's this story, it happened I think earlier this year or last year, but there's like this huge mansion up in Draper with this family who had a business. Turns out they smuggled like 300, some crazy number, like 300 million gallons of oil from Mexico into the US.
Oh, okay.
Connected like gas, like connected with but it was connected with the cartels and illegal money and like black market type of stuff.
Dang.
And so they were like so much money, and they had that huge mansion in Draper, and then they just barely got busted for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
It's all fun and games until you get caught.
mm-hmm. And then there's also a lot of like multi-level marketing companies in Utah, and that has a really
Schmoshmera.
Schmera. Which I say if you have a good product, multi-level marketing can work, but
Schmipstrong. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
like, but so many of them are scams, and so many of them the products aren't even. A lot of times it's just built on the pyramid structure instead of on the product, so it's not really a viable business model. It's just
Yeah.
based on networking and people, which gets scammy. And there's a lot of that in Utah. They call that affinity wealth, where it's like through these networks and through these communities. And I think a lot of that probably has roots in polygamy, but also has roots in like, I think, like women trying to like single, or not single moms, but like stay-at-home moms, and like Mary Kay and like Pampered Chef, like all these things, which I think is great and it's totally fine. But it's interesting to see those ones, and then there's just so many of them in Utah.
Mhm.
Like which ones are legit and which ones aren't, which is interesting.
It's wild because as soon as you started thinking about that, I just thought of like several different things I went to as like a teenager and a young adult that were very pyramid scheme based businesses.
And
every time I was like, again.
they were trying to recruit you too, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
Yes. So there's that a big thing that's happening right now in Utah. I don't know if this has happened to you yet, but I've gotten approached by so many people who I don't know, who act very friendly and outgoing at first, and they're like, oh, and you're like talking to them, you're like, oh, that's a really nice stranger. And then eventually the conversation turns, they're like, yeah, I'm going to retire in my 30s. I'm like about to retire in a couple years. I've been working with this couple and they retired in their 30s.
Oh, yeah.
And now,
about this.
yeah, have you ever been approached by someone saying that?
No, but you were telling me that happened a couple times.
Yeah, it happened to like one of my Uber drivers, a person I met at the gym, someone I met randomly at Thanksgiving Point who just came up to us. Like so many,
That's
it's
so-
happened.
Who is this mystery person?
I know.
That's gonna
that's
help
the
you
thing.
retire in your
It's the
30s.
same origin story of like, oh, they know this couple that retired in their 30s using e-commerce, and they're gonna do it too, and they're on their way to be totally financially independent. And I have actually worked in e-commerce for a job before as an account manager, so I start asking questions. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Like blah 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 blah, and then they get really tight-lipped, and they're like, oh, well, it's kind of their thing, so I don't want to say anything about it. But I can set up a meeting with them if you want to. And I'm like, no, because it's the same thing. And it turns out it's like, I've had some people who actually went through and did it, and I think there's different probably setups, but one of the setups is like you set up an e-commerce store for like all your general necessities and have all your friends and family just buy their groceries from your e-commerce store. But it's like, more expensive than going to the grocery store. So
Oh,
it's
dang.
just like this interesting.
It's like I kind of like that idea, but yeah, if it's more expensive,
Yeah,
doesn't really
it would be a good idea if it was like unique products that were like sustainably sourced or like and it was
right.
cheaper, or like if it was giving some advantage to the customer to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like very interesting. Anyway, so that's like a recent thing I found.
Can you imagine like being one of those people too that are like doing it with some like one of their family members is buying off their e-commerce store, and then they're like, "This is really expensive. I'm gonna order from Walmart," and then they come over to their house and like,
It's
"A Walmart bag, Kroger."
for real. They're like
The betrayal.
suddenly competing with the main grocery store.
Yeah.
What do you mean you went to Costco? Yeah, so that's interesting, but yeah, there's a lot of that in Utah. I think there's also a lot of really nice people and a lot of maybe gullible people. Um but because there's also just like an interesting following in Utah, like a lot of interesting trends. We were kind of talking about like cult type organizations that kind of can easily plant their roots in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And we experienced some of those firsthand for sure. And we were kind of talking about it because that is one of the discussions too when people talk about like the Mormon church. Like, is it a religion or a cult? A lot of people who leave the LDS church feel like it's a cult.
Or people say that religion in general is a cult.
Yeah, that's the thing. What is the difference between religion in general and a cult?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, is it the one and the same? What makes it different?
Mm-hmm.
Is it only because one of them is true in your mind? And if so, how do you make sure that you're not just being deceived or whatever? It's a very interesting, broader conversation.
Yeah. Should I read? Because I looked it up earlier, and do you want me to read some like
Yeah.
cult?
About characteristics
Yeah.
of what a cult is, because that word gets thrown around so much.
Yeah, for real. So number 1, leadership and authority, a charismatic leader. So I think I Googled what are the characteristics or qualities of a cult.
Okay.
So number 1 is leadership and authority, a charismatic leader, often claiming special knowledge, divine inspiration, or unique authority. Leader is viewed as infallible and unquestionable. Strict hierarchy with loyalty to the leader above all else. Number 2, control and manipulation. Thought control, discouraging questioning, doubt, or independent thinking. Information control, limiting outside sources, for example, news, internet, family, friends. Emotional manipulation, guilt, fear, or shame used to maintain obedience. Us versus them mentality, outsiders are dangerous, unworthy, or enemies. Group dynamics. Isolation, separating members from family, friends, or society. Exclusivity. Belief that only the group has the truth or the path to salvation. Intense commitment required. Financial, personal, or time related. Heavy group pressure to conform and obey. Number 4, practice and beliefs. Rigid rules covering all aspects of life, diet, clothing, sex, work, etc. Ritual or teachings that reinforce dependency on the group. Apocalyptic or world-rejecting worldview, like we will only survive or save the world, or only we will survive, save the world / save the world. Exploitation, financial, sexual, or labor-based. And then number 5 is consequences for leaving, fear of punishment, threats, or spiritual damnation if one leaves, shunning, harassment, or being cut off from loved ones, emotional trauma from breaking ties.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Though it's crazy because I feel like because we've heard of cults, and I feel like we also just kind of have a sense for like, this is kind of culty behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting to read that whole list because it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like almost all of those apply to all religions hundreds of years ago, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting because if you think about like Christianity coming over to America, it like replaced paganism or whatever, and paganism was considered like cultish to them. But it's like if you read all those dynamics, it's like hundreds of years ago, weren't all religions kind of having all those aspects of like if you leave, getting cut off, all the intense commitment.
I mean, a lot of that still happens.
No, a
honestly.
lot of that does still happen, and so it's I think why I say hundreds of years ago instead of now is I think that there's still all those remnants from the history of religion, and so now religion is trying to combat that because the modern world is not about that anymore. People do have more freedom and do like we have evolved as a society, and so you see this mass exodus of people leaving religion. And I remember growing up, it was like, oh my gosh, everyone is like turning atheist. And it was like people are leaving religion. We're living in such wicked times. Like I was genuinely concerned about that.
Oh yeah, I was too.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen to the world? But I think
second coming is gonna come.
Yeah, second coming.
That's something that like people in the church always say. That always sounds very culty to me. And then like there's like little things where like in my patriarchal blessing I was told I will see the second coming, but nobody's supposed to know about it. But
yeah, it's all very I do not at all like second coming type of talk or things like that.
I don't either.
And I think
I never have.
Really, I feel like in the homeschool community it was very big.
Yeah,
because it's kind of a reason for people to do things different. Like if you think of people who go off the grid, it's because they're like, the world is going to crap and I need to get out of here.
Yeah,
you need a strong motivation to do strong things. Sometimes like things that require a lot of sacrifice and commitment, and so you have to have some pretty strong beliefs to justify it.
For sure. And then also with our literature, there's a lot of like stuff like that happening, like Noah and the Ark, or like
Book of Revelation.
Christ coming to like the Americas, or what happened after he died, and there's lots of like big things like that. Yeah,
well, and religion, a part of religion is like what happens after we die. That's one of the big questions that religion answers, and so a focus on the afterlife and a focus on like it kind of just evolves into the end of times, things like that. And I feel like I was really involved in that kind of thinking when I was a teenager and younger. But now I feel like that's not a healthy way to take religion. I think you need to look at what makes me a good person and what creates a good life and what creates good results for other people too. And like, because at the end of the day, as much as you think you know about the afterlife, even leaders, when they really do talk about it, they'll say what they believe is right in the different religions, but ultimately they don't know. And so there's not a lot they know. They'll say they do know things, but regardless, it's like regardless of what happens in the afterlife, if you were a kind person and a good person and lived a good, full, rich life and took care of other people, and in my idea, it's like that's what matters in the afterlife is what will matter in this life. Yeah. Because if there's anything we learned, if this life is supposed to teach us about the afterlife, it's about living in the present and doing good now instead of planning to do good later, or like, like principles apply. And so I don't think creating systems that you think are going to exist in the afterlife that may not, we may all get to heaven and be like, oh, the Mormons were right. Everything is what like the plan of salvation, everything thought. Or we may get up there and may be like, oh, the Catholics were right. Or we may get up there and be like, no one was right, And so it's like
floating in space.
Yeah. There's like so many we really don't know, and so it's really about making the most out of this life. Yeah. While having that approach of goodness, and if you have that approach of goodness, it'll serve you in this life and the afterlife. But there's no need to like motivate yourself in this life to do good things because you're hoping for things to happen in the afterlife. That's my perspective. Yeah, for sure. Just because I feel like people who do focus on the afterlife or in the end of times, in the second coming, there's a lot of fear with it. And a lot of unknown and a lot of made up unknown. Like you don't know what's happening, but you're still really scared. And you're doing things that like are not making you happy because you think it's going to protect you. And so Yeah, I don't really believe in that at all. But sorry, that was kind of a sidetrack. But what were we talking about?
Just attributes of a cult.
Oh yeah, so attributes of a cult. So there's two specific organizations that we ran into in our community that felt like they may have had some cult type stuff going on. So the first one was a motivational speaker who the homeschool community came into contact with early in his career when he was just starting, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time to meet a motivational speaker.
But that's the thing, too. He wasn't like, he didn't really start out as a motivational speaker. He started out as a body language expert.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of his twist on what became his motivational speaking seminars.
Right.
Was the body language thing. But it was so interesting because it was like, I'm a body language expert. That's how he was marketing himself.
And I'm like, did he have any credentials? Like,
no, he didn't.
I don't think so. I was like, how did you think of this?
I think maybe he had that, maybe a natural inclination to that growing up. Maybe people had told him that in the past, or like he just noticed. Or it would be interesting to see like how he started that journey, because he did talk about how that was one of his gifts.
Yeah, I still remember his skunk story to this day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, he was a really good storyteller, and it was all about body language, which was such an interesting take for motivational speaking.
Yeah,
I had
definitely
definitely anything like that.
interesting little niche for it.
Yeah. And so, but one of our homeschool leaders, we went to one of his seminars
Yeah, like in the middle of the week.
Yeah, and it was like at a conference room motel, like
in a basement.
room.
It was like super small room.
Yeah,
though.
super small, pretty dingy, and not a lot of people there. And
It was just the homeschool group. I feel like
luckily
we
he
just
had a
showed up.
homeschool
We're like,
group,
hey.
because there was like at least 18 of us or something.
Mm.
And so, and after that seminar, one of our leaders must have been impressed or something, because they
I think all the kids really enjoyed it, actually, especially with his skunk story.
Yeah,
thing.
he had a great personality, and he had a kind of charm to him, kind of like, he was told really good stories and was really engaging. And I think because it was only us there, he like catered to us, and I really liked him too. And so I think the homeschool leader was like, okay, this would be good for our group. And so then they hired him for a semester for every week for our co-op to come in and teach us body language. Do you remember like any of your experiences or anything with that?
The one thing I can say is that a lot of our little homeschool friends, like would go by their middle names, and he said something about you should always go by your first name no matter what. And so a lot of our friends who like to this day go by their first name now, like before we had like I don't want to like say names, but but yeah, they had like kind of like more traditional sounding names like Michael, but they went by like something else, but then they switched back to no, I'm Michael, or like I just remember a few of those. And to this day because we had called them by their middle name that whole time.
Yes.
And now they go by the first name. So that was a thing that he was like, it's very powerful and it's very important to go by your first and full name, especially when you're introducing yourself and blah, blah, blah.
And it's affected their lives forever.
Yeah.
They made that decision. They like made that switch when we were teenagers. And it was interesting because there was a good amount of teenagers in our community who were not going by their first name.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can think of like at least 4 people.
Yeah. And then they switched and they told us like, that's not my name anymore. I'm going by my first name now, and I want you to call me that. So that was an interesting thing that I didn't even think of. That's like, oh wow, that would impact the rest of your life.
Yeah.
We're called. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting though, because like I feel like that's kind of where he got his start. Like
Oh, absolutely.
yes, because we went to that basement or that like motel conference room, whatever it was, and there's really no one else there. And then he came and did this, and it was a steady thing for him once a week that he was going to and getting paid for. And then from there, he grew and grew and grew
Well, I think a lot of us, like, or a lot of the parents, like, kind of helped him.
supported him. That's so right. Because then not only did he have this class for the kids that he would do, but he started doing a special class for the
Oh,
adults
I forgot about
with
that.
with the angle of helping them with their businesses,
Yeah.
body language.
That's so true.
Because there's a lot in the homeschool community because it was all about fight the man. There's also a lot of entrepreneurs or people
Yeah.
who wanted to be entrepreneurs because they didn't want to be tied down to a job or tied down to a boss or whatever, like very non-traditional type of people. And so there's a lot of people who were trying to get their business to be more successful or wanted to start a business or had a business. And so that's how he started the adult class for them. But I remember some interesting things about that. I forgot about this, but I remember he would do private like training sessions, private
I
coaching.
freaking went to one of those.
You
I went to
did?
like one or two of them.
What was it like?
I don't remember being that impressed, to be honest with you. I don't. I remember like being super excited for it and then leaving kind of like,
There goes my Thursday.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like he probably, as is often the case with like motivational speakers and special training and things like that, they kind of make big promises about how much it's going to help you. So I think a lot of adults in our community were like super psyched about it. But I remember that some of them, I remember this adult couple in particular who did private coaching with him, and they opened up about some personal things with their health that they were going through, and then we also like filled in because then he would start doing seminars outside the homeschool community, and a lot of us supported him. A lot of us went to him,
Yeah.
and it grew and got more people. And honestly, it was crazy. It was like our little homeschool group definitely sparked his career and gave him
Well,
the
yeah.
momentum he needed.
Well,
Brought
and
in people.
he would do that thing where he's like, if you can find, like 3 people to sign up for the next seminar, then you get to come for free.
Yeah,
and then
some
like
great referrals.
yeah, like a lot like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was smart on his end because it worked.
Oh yeah, everybody's out there like making their calls.
Yeah, very close knit community with,
Yeah.
and so you get your friends or your families. It's smart. But one time I remember it caused some drama because he would call people up onto the stage and do different things with them. And one of the things he would like read their body language and be like, is that right? And there were people who would like start crying on stage because they were like, oh my gosh, that is right. And then they tell this story about like what happened to them, like trauma or something happening in their life or something that he knew because he read their body language in front of everyone. It was almost kind of like a religious phenomenon, you know?
Yeah,
Like come onto stage and I will heal you. Like that.
it's giving that.
It is giving that. This is wild getting into it now. I'm like remembering, and it definitely had all those vibes, like high energy. A lot of people as they got bigger and like totally invested in the fact that he could do that. But this one couple, he specifically one time in a seminar, out of all the people out there, he chose the husband. The husband came out and he read his body language in front of everyone. And he said some very specific things that they had revealed to him in their private coaching, acting like he knew that from his body language.
Wait, what?
And so
I don't remember this.
well, yeah, that's because it was kind of hush hush talked about afterwards because it created a big reaction in the crowd. But then I remember in the homeschool community, our next co-op day, people were whispering about it and talking and being like, yeah, that's pretty messed up. Like they told him that in confidence and he totally used that when he was reading their body language.
Wow.
And they had paid him money in that private seminar.
Right, and then you
private
just
coaching.
expose them something very private.
Yes, and in a way that's advantageous to you and it had a big effect for your crowd.
Yeah.
So I remember that happening and then they were ticked and did not do anything else with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was just interesting to see his life transformed though. And coming from like he didn't seem like a very successful person starting out. I know he was financially struggling because he talked about it a little bit and like he even talked about his marriage struggling a little bit, I think. And like I think they were like living with his mom's parent. I may be making that part up, but like, and then he started his homeschool community and watching his business grow and grow and grow.
It got really big.
It got really big.
Even
like,
up till a few years ago, I know he was still doing seminars all the time.
really.
Yeah, I remember I had like some random person who had no connection or anything that be like, "Oh, do you want to come to the seminar?" I was like, "Oh dear, no, I've been to all of them. Thank you."
Yeah, we really were in all of them. And like one of our good friends in the homeschool community became his personal assistant.
Yeah, one of my besties.
Yeah, one of your besties
For a long time too.
for years. And like,
Which that was also controversial too.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening there. Well, and that was another thing that he would interestingly do is he needed employees to help run the seminars, but he would get a lot of volunteers from our community and do different things.
Yeah, he did like good marketing. Like, and with this friend, he was this very smart, techie young person.
Mhm.
So pulled him in pretty easy. Like he saw the value of what he could
Yeah.
offer on top of
Yeah,
probably being able to underpay him, you know?
right. And that's what he did with a lot of these volunteers. It was interesting because you could create such an emotional reaction. I think he had a lot of these volunteers who would just like, you get a free seminar if you come and manage my seminars for me. A
Yeah.
lot of people did it, which
Absolutely.
is interesting.
Well, that's kind of the same thing with the other one we're going to talk about too.
I think it's also just an interesting dynamic because I think that's great. I think marketing is great and hustle is great and sales is great. And that's what you need to do to create a business.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is really powerful. And the people who succeed in life are the people who do that. It's just interesting to see it from like a motivational speaker perspective because it's not based on like the product is the motivational speaking, and it's kind of like the chicken or the egg scenario of like what comes first, this person's successful and so they teach you, or because they're teaching you that's how they're getting money to be successful, you know. So that was kind of interesting seeing the roots of that. And then also just kind of it did feel very much like a religious type thing or a culty type thing, even how many like die-hard fans there were and how he would bring people on stage and people would be cheering and yelling and like you would be investing a lot of money into it and your time, like it would be whole weekends where the seminar was. And like very interesting. And then a lot of the people I noticed who did get in like loved the attention of it. Like if they got on stage and they got to tell their story and like maybe the trauma they experienced or the things they were going through, it seemed like there was a lot of that happening, which was interesting. It's like sometimes vulnerable people are the most susceptible to those kind of groups because they feel a sense of belonging and they feel a sense of value and like, being heard and seen.
Yeah.
When otherwise, if for whatever reason in their life, they don't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it all is based on like a charismatic leader.
Yep.
Saying they have like some specific value in like his body language. And it's interesting when you're really bought into it and then slowly you step away and you're like, oh wow, I put a lot of money into that and a lot of my time and that was like my everything. And then stepping away, you're like, oh, interesting.
I think the
And
other thing
start
I
to hear
noticed,
stories.
I noticed too from both of these instances, I was like, a lot of them, it is just like regurgitated stuff from like the big motivational speakers too.
Mm-hmm.
But they like try to like make little switches and stuff to make it their own.
Yeah. Like the body language thing, that's definitely unique. I've never seen anyone else do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But the same principles and the same like writing on the like white pad and bringing people on stage and like a lot of the same principles they're talking about are the same. They're just regurgitated.
Right. Well, a lot of like the for show stuff was the same as what I've seen elsewhere.
Oh, like the same kind of rituals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's like, luckily I don't feel like it had the type of like if you leave there's going to be bad consequences.
Right. It's more like a business, like you come and you.
Yeah. So that's good. But like some of the characteristics that you just named off, like the charismatic leader who has something special about them and a call to authority and the intense commitment levels that are tied to money and behavior and time, and sacrifice for that. It wasn't like necessarily malicious, just like stories you would hear about, oh, maybe people were like getting underpaid and like
There were some
being
things like
taken advantage.
later on, I feel like, as he got more successful, that I heard, again, it's all alleged.
Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of happens too, just naturally in human nature. You get more power, and you think you're more untouchable. And
Yeah. And he became very successful, and
I wonder where he's at now.
Yeah.
Curious.
it would be interesting to look into that. But so that's the first one. That was the body language one. And then the second one, which I would argue was more culty,
Oh, absolutely.
yes, was limitless. And you said you've heard of a couple of different limitless?
Yeah, I remember when I was doing Uber, I picked up like a few people from like this random exclusive party up at this random mansion up in Farmington, and I was like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's from my." Very much it sounded very similar, but it was not the same people. I wonder if there was a tie to it or not.
Yeah, if it was like an offshoot or something.
Yeah, but it was literally called the same thing.
Yeah, maybe it was. Who knows?
Yeah.
But okay, so what Limitless was? When did you start getting involved? Because Mom and you started going
Pretty
for it.
early, I feel like. Like we went in 2016, which I think was in the beginning stages.
Yeah, and how old were you?
In 2016, I would have been like 22, 23.
Okay, so young 20.
Which is right after I went through like my super traumatic experience when I was 21. That was kind of like my catalyst for staying or leaving in the church, and I was still like in the middle of figuring all that out.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a very volatile time to be. So you guys are introduced into this group, and what was your experience? What was it? How did you get introduced? What are the things you did?
It was very much like it was very Tony Robbins reminiscent, but it's all like, you are limitless, like there's nothing you can do, that blah 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 blah. So they had like a lot of like the same rituals, like having people come on. Oh man, I'm trying to remember some of the things they would have you. The thing that I think was really powerful is they would have you do these certain activities, like you would write your limiting belief on an arrow, like a pointy arrow, and then they would have you like stick it at your throat, and somebody would have the back end on their hand, and then you'd have to walk into the arrow and snap the arrow. So you're like,
with this sensitive part, like right.
Yeah, right here.
And it wasn't like an arrowhead.
It wasn't like sharp, but it was pointy.
Yeah, it was like a pointy, sharp stick.
Yeah. And then you just had, and that one was actually powerful too, because you had to walk with it at your throat and push through it and break it, and then you would hug like the person that was holding like the back end of the arrow.
It was very emotional to watch it and to do it.
Yeah.
You have someone, they made sure to have someone who you're connected to, who you love, on the other side of that arrow.
Yeah.
So like it's actually
it's like a trust.
Yeah. So it's like, let's hope this doesn't like puncture my throat.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I'm holding and getting embraced by the person I love. Like, can you break past your limiting belief to get to that?
Yep. The other one was it was the karate chop of the board. Same thing. You wrote your limiting belief, or you would write your limiting beliefs, I think, on one side, and then you would write the opposite of it on the other side, and then they would show you how to do the karate chop. I was so bugged though, because I got a piece of wood that like people were doing it, and like they would always bring somebody up to demonstrate it beforehand, right? Like somebody that had never done it before. And make them do it. And that was always super powerful. And everybody's like, wee, I'm excited to do it now.
Yeah.
But I remember I got like this janky piece of wood, and I could not break through these beliefs.
They're like, dang it, this is not a limitless piece of wood. Who brought in the real wood?
For real. Yeah, it was, and I couldn't break it. And I was trying all day to break it. And my hands hurt so bad. But yeah, that was one. Another one is they had like broken glass all over the floor, and you had to like walk across this broken glass. I don't know what that was about, but something
like the fire.
It's like the firewalk, yeah. Which I have done the firewalk with Tony Robbins. Brag. But
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I just watched the Office episode with that.
I know, right? I love that episode. But Yeah, so they were really good about like, and it was very much like you're focusing on your own like personal things and what's holding you back and blah blah blah. And I think just a lot of times when people are kind of like forced to like actually sit down and face what they think is actually holding them back, and then to feel like that adrenaline of like breaking through or to feel breakthroughs. And there's a lot of like, it's kind of again same kind of vibes, like repeat after me, I am this, like a lot of affirmations and stuff.
And you're yelling it in a group where you have a leader yelling it back.
Yep. And they want you to yell it as loud as you can, as powerful as you can. And this guy, the leader, was very good at hyping people up.
Yeah. He was like a pretty huge gym bro, if I remember right.
Yeah. And just very good at like really, just really getting people into it. And lots of people were crying all the time.
Yes.
But yeah, and then that's kind of what it was. And then they had, like, I feel like this is more towards the end of the seminar. Or it's interesting how they would start to, like, trickle it in. But it was like, you could be a part of our inner circle. And then if you pay this money, then we will show you how to invest and how to do, like, I think it was, like, real estate, right?
Yeah.
It was, like, a lot of real estate. And, but yeah, you give us, like, $10,000 and we'll...
I think it was like $20,000. And this was back in like
2017. Yeah. Yeah. And they were very like, if you like are really feel really, really drawn to this and like you want to invest in yourself, like, are you going to let this hold you back too?
Yeah.
Like it would like
is money being your limiting belief? Yeah. Are you going to let...
Is that why you don't have any money? Is because you're not letting... Yeah.
Yes!
So manipulative.
I forgot about that. So this whole seminar, they're teaching you to break through your limiting beliefs and connecting your, like, cerebral thoughts with the physical to create ritual.
Yeah.
And ritual is very powerful if you're connecting your mental with your physical. And so doing that in a community and talking about limiting beliefs and really believing like you can do anything, don't let anything stop you.
Especially not you.
Especially not you. It's literally just limiting beliefs. If you want something, you can have it. And then at the end, tying it into a sales pitch where this whole weekend you've had such ups and downs with your emotions and bonding and experiences. And then they're like, if you want to really get to the next level and be in the inner circle where you can be with us, who are obviously the top of the game, we will teach you the secrets to explode financially and make more money than you've ever made before and be happier than you've ever been before and healthier and have better relationships. And come talk to us. And it's only for if you're an elite. And it's $20,000.
Yeah. But you got to do what you got to do to get in there.
That'll be
you got to change your life.
Compared to all the progress we're going to get you by being in this inner circle. And they literally would say things like, money is just your limiting belief. There's like an abundance. There's a limitless amount of money in the world. And you're limiting yourself right now by denying this opportunity, by not paying us this $20,000 because you're scared of spending that much money when really it's what you need to be in this inner circle.
Yep.
And they got people to do that, to cough up $20,000.
A lot.
I think they even offered funding to do them.
Oh, yeah.
And people who did go into that group, they didn't really do anything with investing or real estate. These people, and that's the interesting thing with Limitless. It wasn't one charismatic leader. It was two dudes.
And I feel like they would bring up quite a bit of people that had kind of been with them for a while and were kind of like working with them on stuff. And a lot of them were like attractive, young, charming people.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they would always kind of put them in little leadership roles. Like,
it was like a referral system for sure. And kind of a, I don't know if I want to say grooming, but a system regardless. But yeah, so it was these two dudes. And so they convinced these people to pay them literally tens of thousands of dollars to get into this inner circle. And these guys really didn't know anything about investing and didn't really know anything about real estate. Not in the real world.
Yeah.
And so they
about getting people to invest.
Yeah. So they had figured out how to hype up people and get emotion and do seminars, which is a skill. But they did not help any of those people.
And I don't feel like, they really came through it all. Like, I feel like at first they were kind of strong with their inner circle meetings and stuff, but
yeah, that's the thing. They did try to create this community where
how are you gonna like sit and coach all these people? Like, I don't know. It just
I just think, and this is a big thing, and why I feel like it's scammy and also a little culty for these organizations, these like motivational organizations like this, is they don't have the qualifications to do that. They figured out how to hype people up, which
you don't
good for
have
them.
the
A lot of people
technical
can't get to
skills
that
to
level.
teach someone
So
to
you do
invest if
definitely
you
have
don't know how to
skills,
invest.
and you do have definitely have put in hustle and created a business.
Yeah.
But you don't have the technical skills to teach someone to invest if you don't know how to invest. And you don't know how to teach someone to be in real estate. Like they basically, I don't know if they like partnered with another company or something, but it literally was like nothing. It was basically like the same thing everyone in the world has tried to do with real estate. Like cold call these people and try to get them to like sell them your house and then try to work out the numbers so you're making a profit or whatever. So there is nothing unusual or special about that $20,000 they paid for those investment, and they didn't really help you. And then they would do these groups where they'd be like, okay, this is like a god and goddesses type of retreat where the men and the women would do things, and like they did do a couple of those, but even that wasn't a lot. Like the support in the community, from what I heard, was not really there. And I think these people felt really special too, getting to be with these leaders and being with these other like powerhouses. But ultimately,
well, yeah, and they would have meetings in like their gorgeous, beautiful homes.
yeah. And when you're dealing with people like that, you would assume they know what they're talking about, and they assume if they're that successful and they're that rich, that they're going to teach you to do that because they said they were going to teach you to do that, and you paid them money to do that.
This is one thing I will say about the main leader dude in that one versus the other guy that we previously talked about. He was very good at like being very kind and very like made every individual person like feel good. He was very charismatic and seemed like a real genuine like man of integrity type of person.
Yes. And he was
like a very trustworthy person.
Yeah. And he was married and had like 7 kids, and then the other guy was single. And so they had a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And the single guy had like his own little following of women and girls who, because he was attractive. And so,
I mean, he's high.
Okay, honestly, yeah, I was like not that old, and thinking about it, he wasn't that attractive. But I think it was just the
We should look him up on Facebook afterwards.
We should. But it kind of creates that environment when you're the leader and you're charismatic. You seem way hotter than you actually are. And I think people really like in these type of organizations, people become obsessive about those personalities.
Yeah.
They feel so special and so valued when the guy who's yelling chants and everyone's yelling back the chants, the guy who's bringing people to tears has a special moment with you. It makes you feel like you're $1 million, and it feels like I'm special because this special person saw me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that was another pull into the inner circle, is like these successful, amazing people. I get to be around them, and they're going to teach me how to do the same thing. And ultimately, it was like a pretty big scam.
Yeah.
And
I also want to find out where they're kind of at now.
Yeah. I think I saw one of the guys, I think I saw a TikTok video that went viral of him talking about something random, but that was a while ago. Yeah, so that one was really interesting because it had the same kind of like seminar setup and these really emotional.
It was very Tony Robbins. Very, very, very Tony Robbins.
Very.
And that was the other thing I was going to say too, is he kind of did the similar thing of like a lot of like the staff, like the lower staff, they would do the same thing. Like, you can get a free seminar, you can get this or this or this if you come and volunteer at one of my seminars for this whole weekend. And then I remember there was one ritual too that they would do that was like kind of more personal. It was almost like you were doing like therapy with a total stranger, and like you would tell them like something like very dark, which is also a cult thing, by the way.
Yeah, it's like,
Getting somebody's secrets
that
or their
like,
trauma.
that, like they were specific, like you have to tell something that is like really personal.
Yeah, like one of your, I don't remember how they worded it, but it was something that was supposed
And
to be
didn't they
very,
call those people like your spirit guide or something? Like
yeah,
angel,
your spirit angel, or
yeah, something like that. Your angel guide or something like that.
yeah, which was like kind of crazy. And it's like these people who don't really know anything, I'm sure they gave them like their little training or whatever, but then like also I'm like, you're just taking on a lot of trauma dumping, and like
you're not qualified to coach someone if they're telling you something like that, and you also are not prepared to handle that in your mental state, you know. You like, I think that's a lot of things. I think a lot of those people were going to both of those seminars instead of going to therapy, because it did attract a lot of people who loved to cry on stage and wanted attention and wanted to be heard and listened to and valued, which are all basic needs that we feel. But I think it was a lot of people who weren't getting that in their lives, and so suddenly you have this big, exciting like group of people, and I think really it's a crazy dynamic, because there's plenty of seminars out there, and there's plenty of motivational speakers. And I feel like I read a fair amount of self-help,
which was actually very smart too, because
what do you think?
You have like obviously
these
the big
two
seminar, whatever,
made it
but then splitting it
different
into
than
smaller
like
groups,
a normal type of,
because they can't sit and bond
motivational
with everybody.
speaking
But if you
seminar
bond with
or
your little group, like to this day,
something
I
like that.
still like have. I'm friends
Like,
with
because
these
you've been to
people
Tony
that
Robbins,
I
right?
was in my group. You
Did
know,
you feel like it was the same as Tony
and they were like
Robbins, or
older people.
were there things that
and
felt different? And that's
I feel like
if
it
you
was
can
very
create
similar.
connections, you can create a community, and that's what gets people to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I could be very wrong on this. Tony Robbins could possibly like want you to sign up for extra stuff. Like that would make sense if he had stuff like that, but I feel like it was more of like you were going for that experience and to have your life changed, and like you weren't going to like continue to do a subscription or an inner circle or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, like the motivational speakers, they kind of do the same thing, but
yeah, it's like
a lot of times they deliver.
Yes.
What they say they're going to deliver.
Yeah. I think that's perfectly normal in a business model to have an upsell.
Yeah.
That's like pretty much every business has that. And if you don't, a lot of times you'll get coached into making sure you have an upsell. So.
Right.
But I think the thing is, it's just the manipulation, like the emotional manipulation around it. And like the authority, like the charismatic leader is like, I have this special authority for whatever reason. And like the call to authority and the commitment and the kind of taking advantage of people and not being able to deliver is huge.
Yeah.
Like upsell is fine in a company, but if you can't deliver, that's
the main thing. Yeah.
Then that is,
and that's where I felt like let down on both of those other ends.
Right. And that's the thing. It's so hard because it's non-tangible things. But like, oh, well, I tried to deliver, but you just didn't become successful. I don't know. It's like easy to hide in that and easy to take people's money.
Well, that's part of like the shame and the guilt or whatever.
Like you just have limiting beliefs. That's on you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you technically can't make someone successful, you know? It has to come from them. But when you don't really have anything special that you're offering and you just did a good enough sell to convince people to give you money and you're not giving them any value in return or anything unique, that's a scam. And then you just keep them there with like a lot of emotional like control almost.
Yeah.
And then you have the shady things that are happening on the side and on like the underbelly. And then you're like, oh, that only confirms it even more about these stories of what's happening to people in the organizations themselves. So,
yep.
Yeah. So if you ever are looking to join a cult, Utah is a great place to find several options. And I think it's always
several dozen options.
Yes. You could have the pick of the litter, honestly. Maybe you can start your own cult.
Honestly.
honestly.
I don't know. Lots of competition.
Yeah, high competition, high saturation, but
You have to do something niche like body language or like,
dolphin speaking.
yeah.
If you could communicate with dolphins, that would be.
Dang, that would be cool. They talk to the aliens.
Who?
The dolphins.
Oh, I thought you knew someone else who was doing something like that.
No, but if you are, let me know.
Yeah, maybe that's something we'll start. But yeah, so I don't know if anyone else has had similar experience. I would love to hear any.
I bet so many people like. Yeah, sorry.
No.
I bet like there's things that you don't even think about because like I didn't even really think about this again until you brought it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. I did think about the limitless one because I always joke about the time I almost joined a cult.
Yes. Yeah, there's like, yeah, I would be fascinated to hear people's stories if they've been a part of those organizations or other organizations or just experiences like that, and maybe why this is something that happens in Utah. Like, what kind of things are causing it to come into fruition would be an interesting thing to hear people's opinions too. So that's today's episode. Next week, we will go back to the history of the church in Utah and what those crazy people were doing with blood atonement.
Oh gosh,
I know.
God, that's what we're talking about.
We're literally going to get into blood atonement next time. So
Woo.
stay tuned.
Sister now wife, taking a stand. Truth weapon, Bible in hand.